The revelation of the chosen, from misjudgment to recognition before the world ever throws a celebration in your honor, it will first subject you to an intense interrogation. Before the masses ever nod in genuine approval and offer you their respect, you are almost always destined to be misjudged, isolated, and unfairly branded as fundamentally different. This is a pattern we see in every great story, every journey of profound purpose. But I want you to stop and ask yourself a transformative question. What if every single thing they misunderstood about you, every label, every moment of distance, was actually the most concrete evidence of the extraordinary person you were actively becoming? It's not a flaw, it's a signpost. You become intimately familiar with this powerful, often unsettling feeling long before any official recognition ever arrives. People don't need a formal introduction to your greatness to sense it. They pick up on something uniquely different in your aura, an inexplicable quality they struggle to define or categorize. It's an unmistakable presence, a kind of internal energy signature that simply does not match or conform to the average level or environment they are accustomed to inhabiting. This disconnect is the spiritual tension you carry. The key thing to realize is that you don't even need to open your mouth for them to feel this seismic shift. Your true identity, your spiritual waiter, arrives in the room moments before your rational explanation ever can. Because their minds are incapable of immediately processing and understanding the sheer depth of what they are sensing, their instinctive reaction is to create a buffer. They respond with either calculated distance, profound confusion, or a quiet, almost instinctive fear of the unknown. They become silent students of your movements, watching you without knowing the reason why. They maintain an arm's length separation from you, unable to provide a logical justification for their wariness. You hear them whisper tentative labels about you: strange, too much, aloof, tags they don't even fully believe in their own hearts. Yet, within the quiet sanctuary of your own soul, you have always held onto the sacred, undeniable truth. What they consistently misread as strangeness or social awkwardness was merely your powerful calling and destiny revealing its contours too early for their comprehension. Being consistently misunderstood was never, ever a personal deficiency or a flaw within your character. It was, and still is, a powerful spiritual signal. It is a resounding affirmation that your profound destiny has already begun its inevitable, glorious unfolding, while everyone else is still busy critiquing your point of origin or your humble beginnings. Misunderstanding is not a form of heavenly punishment or a curse placed upon you. Quite the opposite. It is often heaven's very first confirmation, a declaration that you are in the process of becoming someone their current frame of reference is simply not yet equipped to interpret or contain. And the glorious, liberating moment you internalize this essential truth, when you truly own it, the immense weight of every single past rejection, every moment of feeling alienated, suddenly lifts and shifts into something entirely different. The burden is replaced by a profound understanding and a quiet sense of destiny. Before we delve further into this revelation, I kindly ask you to take a brief moment to support this message. Please like this video, subscribe if you haven't yet joined this community, and most importantly, drop the number 99 into the comments section below. Spiritually, the powerful number 99 represents that critical, dynamic moment right before full completion. It signifies your intense transition phase, the sacred period when what has been misunderstood and hidden is finally poised to break through and be gloriously revealed to the world. Understand that there is a deep spiritual element of you that precedes your physical body's entry into any space. Your commanding presence consistently arrives many steps ahead of your actual footsteps. Your intrinsic energy introduces the very essence of you long before you ever utter a single word of greeting. This is precisely why people react to you with such instantaneous and often palpable intensity. These reactions can range dramatically. Sometimes they manifest as deep, consuming curiosity, at other times a tangible hesitation, and often an unexplainable, nervous tension they clumsily attempt to mask behind overly polite, strained smiles. They are reacting to the invisible force field around you. Those who are chosen, those carrying a higher purpose, naturally emit a particular spiritual frequency. This frequency is not something that can be learned, skillfully copied, or diligently trained for in a classroom. It is truly ancient, often inherited, and deeply carried within the very fabric of your soul. It is a unique signature that only the spiritually sensitive are truly capable of detecting and reading. You have likely been aware of this peculiar dynamic throughout your entire life, marking you as distinct. It's the reason people often find themselves staring at you for a second or two longer than is socially appropriate. It's why total strangers sometimes behave in ways that are either unusually deferential and respectful, or, conversely, highly defensive and guarded. Others may become visibly nervous or unsettled in your immediate vicinity, often without any clear or apparent logical reason. They are absolutely not responding to your charming personality or your casual conversation. They are responding instead to your undeniable spiritual depth, a profound inner reality that their own spirit registers and feels, even when their rational, logical mind completely fails to process the information. Your sharp intuition pierces through complex situations and discerns true meaning much faster than other people can manage to explain them. Your measured silence frequently communicates far more potent wisdom and authority than the vast majority of people's carefully rehearsed speeches ever could. Your rich, complex inner world is often louder, more vibrant, and more spiritually awake than the physical environment and the people immediately surrounding you. Because the larger world is overwhelmingly accustomed to shallow, fleeting connections, surface-level and easily readable intentions, and predictable, linear patterns, your intrinsic spiritual intensity acts as a significant disruption to their established, comfortable rhythm. They undeniably feel your presence and your purpose long before they can grasp it intellectually. They sense your authentic truth long before they have genuinely earned the right or the privilege to hear it articulated. This essential difference creates a wide, unbridgeable gap, an invisible but very real distance between the majestic person you truly are and the simplistic, often flawed version of you that other people assume or project. They make a clumsy effort to interpret your powerful presence using only their own limited, human perspective, but your vast, divine calling will simply not fit neatly inside their restricted human language. They might clearly sense something deeply spiritual and profound about you, but they make the fatal mistake of trying to decode it using purely logical frameworks. They sense your clear purpose and inherent potential, yet they defensively project their own deep uncertainty onto you. They feel a natural authority radiating from you, but they cleverly disguise and label it as mere intimidation. Without ever realizing the monumental error they are making, they habitually misread your profound inner strength as coldness or aloofness. They interpret your clear, decisive clarity as simple arrogance, your essential, rock-solid calmness as irritating mystery, and your spiritual discernment as plain suspicion. Understand this key point. They are not genuinely reacting to you as a person. They are reacting, often quite dramatically, to the intense, awakened version of themselves that you inadvertently bring to the surface when you are near. The ultimate truth here is strikingly simple. Your unique frequency always speaks first and loudest. And the unfortunate reality is that most people simply lack the spiritual vocabulary or the training to accurately interpret a message their spirit receives moments before their cautious mind is fully ready to accept it. And yet, this is the most beautiful part, the part that remains entirely invisible to them until it's too late. What they actively misunderstand, judge, or reject about you today is almost certainly destined to become what they ultimately admire, seek out, and celebrate about you tomorrow. What they initially fear and cautiously keep their distance from will eventually and inevitably transform into what they learn to trust, rely on, and follow later on. But this dramatic reversal, this shift in perception, does not occur randomly or by simple luck. It unfolds precisely at a divinely calculated hour and moment, because the necessary season of misunderstanding is always designed to precede the arrival of deep, genuine respect. And as we continue, you will finally understand the profound reason why heaven itself designed this specific sequence of events. There is a powerful and very specific spiritual reason why people consistently act so differently, so unnerved or so guarded around you, even in moments when you haven't spoken a single impactful word. You carry within you a powerful, illuminating light, a divine torch, that effortlessly exposes the uncomfortable truths others have desperately tried to keep hidden, buried, or unacknowledged. This happens not because you actively desire to expose them, nor because you force it to happen, but purely because authentic truth spontaneously recognizes itself the moment you walk into any given room. And for a great many people in the world, the truth about themselves and their lives is the one terrifying thing they have spent years, even decades, actively avoiding, running from, or burying deep beneath layers of distraction. Your powerful, unadulterated presence possesses a unique, almost effortless ability to quietly and painlessly peel back these defensive layers. You are not actively trying to investigate anyone's secrets. You are not consciously analyzing their deep wounds or decoding their complex intentions. Yet, somehow, when people find themselves standing directly in front of you, the heavy masks they wear suddenly feel intolerably heavier. Their flimsy excuses sound substantially weaker. Their carefully constructed lies feel much louder, more noticeable, and more abrasive. That is the raw, spiritual tension they are unable to articulate or explain away. You are the catalyst that awakens the parts of them they had desperately hoped would remain safely dormant and asleep forever. People harboring hidden, secret agendas immediately become deeply uncomfortable in your light. Individuals grappling with significant, unresolved trauma suddenly become noticeably defensive and prickly. People living their lives behind brittle, false identities feel profoundly exposed, even if you haven't addressed a single, specific word to them. They look directly into your eyes and, instead of seeing you clearly, they see a jarring, accurate reflection of everything they have consciously failed to confront, resolve, or heal within their own being. And instead of summoning the immense courage to see you for who you truly are, a person of strength and peace, they instinctively react to their own deep-seated shadows. That precisely is why they rush to label you with a collection of names that have never, in a single moment, truly belonged to you. Strange, arrogant, intense, hard to read. They are completely unaware that what they are fundamentally reacting to is the raw, terrifying sensation of being seen, truly, deeply, and spiritually seen for the first time. They are completely unaccustomed to encountering someone whose discerning eyes do not fall for their carefully orchestrated performance. They are not used to someone who can intuitively sense and read the core intentions behind their words long before they manage to offer any formal explanations. They are bewildered by someone whose spiritual intuition moves far ahead of every casual conversation. And because they lack the integrity or the courage to admit this humbling truth out loud, they choose the simpler route. They defensively project their profound discomfort directly back onto you. They cleverly disguise their deep-seated intimidation as dismissive judgment. They mask their quiet admiration as suspicion or watchfulness. They cleverly interpret a genuine spiritual awakening happening within them as simple, petty resentment toward you. You have undoubtedly noticed how some acquaintances suddenly and inexplicably drift away without any logical reason, or how others might fall mysteriously quiet or become intensely reserved in your potent presence. They feel completely exposed and spiritually naked, but they are utterly unable to articulate why this is happening. They sense and register your powerful discernment, but they lack the tools or the vocabulary to properly process it. And instead of owning the truth that is violently being stirred up and activated deep inside them, they invariably choose the path of least resistance. They misinterpret your stillness and blame you for the very discomfort that is actually originating entirely from their own unhealed, shadowy, or unaddressed places. You are not, and have never been, the actual threat. What they are desperately trying to avoid looking at in themselves, the thing that awakens when they look at you, that is the real threat to their comfortable illusion. And the more profoundly and spiritually awakened you become, the more powerfully intense this unavoidable mirror effect will grow and operate. This is because chosen ones don't merely sit back and passively observe the truth. They actively illuminate it and bring it to light. They possess the inherent spiritual power to make hidden things visible to all. They courageously inject authenticity and raw truth into spaces that have been painstakingly constructed upon pretense, illusion, and compromise. Your mere presence naturally interrupts comfortable illusions. Your powerful spirit instinctively disrupts deception and falsehoods. Your consistent character directly confronts any form of hypocrisy or inconsistency. And the most remarkable part is that you achieve all of this profound work without consciously trying to. That is the true, underlying reason why people misjudge you so often and so completely. It happens even when you have committed no wrongdoing, even when your intentions were crystalline pure, even when your heart was steady and filled with kindness. They are not genuinely resisting you. They are fiercely resisting the deep, uncomfortable truth you effortlessly activate within their own souls. But what occurs next? The inevitable, profound shift that takes place once this difficult mirror effect has entirely completed its divine purpose. That is something most people never, ever anticipate or see coming. And in the next part of this deep, unfolding spiritual journey, you will finally understand precisely how this initial, profound discomfort miraculously transforms into the very respect and high regard they once so aggressively and defensively withheld. There arrives a decisive moment in the journey of every single chosen one, when the world and the comfortable social structures around them start to dramatically thin out and dissipate. Long-held conversations fade into silence. Invitations to social gatherings suddenly cease. People who once seemed intimately close or inseparable suddenly pull away with alarming speed, as if being guided by an invisible, powerful, and unseen spiritual hand, and you are naturally left to wonder, did I make some fundamental mistake? Did I do something wrong? But the truth is exponentially more sacred, complex, and profound than any simple, self-critical explanation you could ever conceive of. Your imposed isolation is absolutely not abandonment or punishment. It is, in fact, sacred selection. It is a precisely calculated spiritual strategy, brilliantly disguised in the painful, quiet clothing of loneliness and social withdrawal. When the divine, when heaven itself is strategically preparing you for a dramatically higher level of purpose, continued exposure to the wrong influences becomes spiritually dangerous, and unnecessary distractions become extraordinarily costly to your future. Consequently, God deliberately separates you from the crowd, not to punish or diminish your worth, but specifically to sharpen your focus, your character, and your resolve. This profound withdrawal you have been experiencing is not random chance. It is not personal rejection. It is not an accident of circumstance. It is, undeniably, divine architecture in action. People are naturally distancing themselves from you simply because they are no longer spiritually or emotionally meant to walk side by side with the completely new, powerful, and emerging version of you. Your sudden, quiet stillness becomes deeply unsettling to those who exclusively benefited from your previous noise, your constant energy, and your attention. Your rapid, undeniable growth becomes threatening to those who were deeply and comfortably invested in your smaller, more uncertain self. Your monumental transformation becomes genuinely confusing and disruptive to those who only ever recognize the old, predictable you, the version you have already irrevocably outgrown. They interpret your newfound stillness as coldness, your focused ambition as detachment, your quiet healing as arrogance, and your healthy self-respect as inexplicable rebellion. And while they are intensely preoccupied with misreading the powerful evidence of your spiritual evolution, the divine architect is diligently busy rebuilding your entire foundational structure upon rock. It is within the confines of this deep isolation that you finally learn to hear the profound truths you stubbornly ignored before the noise of the crowd. You develop a piercing discernment and intuition that the chaotic noise of crowds would have certainly drowned out and silenced. You gain an intrinsic, unshakable strength that the soft comfort of social acceptance could never, ever have given you. Crucially, your confidence no longer depends on the fickle, temporary applause of others. Your future direction no longer bends or submits to popular opinions or fleeting trends. Your core purpose no longer negotiates or compromises with deep-seated insecurity or self-doubt. Isolation is the sacred, necessary space where truly chosen ones finally cease the exhausting labor of merely surviving and instead boldly begin the essential work of becoming. It is the spiritual cocoon that meticulously protects your fragile transformation before your glorious new wings are fully ready and dried. It is the silent ground where old, limiting cycles quietly die and new, powerful versions of yourself rise silently and powerfully into being. And though this period often feels overwhelmingly like a profound loss, it is, in reality, the most thorough preparation for a coming season where you will not just be vaguely seen, but you will be undeniably, powerfully recognized and revered. This is because the very same people who once quietly drifted away will eventually, inevitably return. Only this time they will see you with perfect, uncompromising clarity. They will finally notice the monumental, enduring strength they once completely overlooked, the profound wisdom they so foolishly underestimated, the sheer resilience they so tragically misjudged, and the foundational character they once casually dismissed. Respect is a rare commodity. It is never spontaneously born at the beginning of a chosen one's challenging, formative journey. It arrives much later, sometimes years later. It shows up forcefully and undeniably after isolation has completely finished its intended work. After your transformation has become so obvious and monumental, it is utterly undeniable, and after your true purpose finally begins speaking louder than all of their combined, unfounded assumptions and projections, they undoubtedly questioned and doubted the fragile, formative version of you that was still in the agonizing process of becoming. But they will absolutely and undeniably respect the fully formed, powerful version of you that finally and gloriously arrives. And in the very next part of this spiritual journey, you will gain a profound and detailed understanding of why that genuine, earned respect doesn't just spontaneously appear. Instead, it meticulously unfolds with precise, divine timing, revealing a core truth about your identity that most casual observers never saw coming. There comes a distinct, undeniable point in your personal growth journey when your forward momentum begins to accelerate far beyond anything that people initially anticipated or predicted. You begin to think in completely novel ways they never considered possible. You start moving through the world with a sense of decisive purpose they could never have imagined or wished for you. Your profound spiritual mind expands rapidly, your inner spirit strengthens dramatically, your essential perspective sharpens to a razor's edge, and suddenly, you are no longer the predictable, small version of yourself they were once comfortable knowing. But here lies the persistent, central problem. Most people remain intensely attached to the fixed snapshot they took of you many years ago. They desperately cling to the memory of who you used to be, because that is the only version of you that ever fully made comfortable sense within their limited worldview. Therefore, when your true evolution begins in earnest, they lose their ability to categorize you. They fiercely resist it. They openly question its authenticity. They try aggressively to shrink you back into the smaller identity that gave them a sense of control and comfort. They look at your massive growth and casually dismiss it as mere change, not fully realizing that it is, in the deepest sense, a profound, irreversible revelation of your true nature. They assume you are suddenly acting different when, in reality, you are finally, authentically, and courageously acting like your true self. And because they entirely lack the spiritual stamina or the inner courage to keep pace with your inevitable evolution, they defensively interpret it as distance, betrayal, rebellion, or frustrating unpredictability. They want desperately for you to fit neatly back into the confining, small narrative they painstakingly told themselves about you. But chosen ones do not, and cannot, live confined inside other people's limiting narratives. They quietly, rapidly, and irreversibly outgrow them, leaving them in the dust of their past. Your spectacular evolution fundamentally threatens the cozy, comforting illusions that people painstakingly built and projected around you for their own security. They fully expected you to remain permanently stuck at their emotional, spiritual, and intellectual level. They never genuinely believed that your deep wounds would inevitably transform into profound, applicable wisdom. They certainly did not anticipate that your inevitable failures would become the powerful, unstoppable fuel for your current success. They were perfectly comfortable with your past uncertainty and self-doubt, but they were deeply, tragically unprepared for your current, crystalline clarity and decisive action. And when your entire inner world began its inevitable, magnificent shift, they were entirely unready for the inevitable ripple effect it created. This is because you didn't just passively evolve, you decisively surpassed their wildest expectations without even trying to impress them. Yet, here is the striking, beautiful irony in this difficult process. The very same people who once openly questioned, doubted, and minimized your necessary growth will later stand in absolute, undeniable awe of its profound results. They will mentally replay old, significant moments in their minds and finally realize the truth. You were never truly changing. You were powerfully, deliberately emerging all along. They will finally remember the subtle signs they carelessly ignored, the powerful inherent strength they deeply underestimated, and the incredible potential they completely failed to see. And when your glorious, powerful transformation becomes too visible and too impactful to deny, their initial doubt begins to give way. Admiration begins its slow, steady work to replace judgment. Earned respect begins to forcefully replace their long-held criticism. Genuine curiosity begins to gently replace their cynical, unfounded criticism. This shift in perspective does not happen suddenly in a flash. It doesn't arrive loudly with fanfare. It happens with perfect divine precision, exactly when heaven determines the time is finally right for your revelation. People will attempt to credit your remarkable progress to simple luck, fortunate timing, or favorable circumstances. But you, in the quiet core of your being, will know the absolute truth. This profound, undeniable shift from doubt to deep respect has absolutely nothing to do with their eventual approval or acknowledgement. It is simply divine timing powerfully activated the exact moment your uncontainable purpose becomes utterly impossible for the world to ignore or diminish. And what comes next? The absolute final, glorious stage of this deep, fundamental transformation is the exact moment when the full truth of your identity finally becomes too powerful, too compelling, and too clear for the world to ever misinterpret you again. There is a final, sacred moment in the life of every chosen one when everything that once felt incredibly confusing, heavy, or fragmented suddenly and profoundly starts to click into clear, perfect sense. It is the moment when your purpose begins its external activation, not merely operating silently inside your spirit, but powerfully manifesting in the eyes and hearts of everyone who is watching and listening. For many difficult years, people could not intellectually explain you. They struggled to definitively define you. They could not grasp the fundamental reason why you thought so differently, felt emotions so deeply, or moved with such purposeful, distinct motion. But the moment your calling powerfully rises to the surface and begins its true work, their entire framework of confusion shatters like fragile glass. They finally begin to see the powerful truth that heaven has always patiently seen in you. Respect does not suddenly appear because they have finally decided they like you. It manifests because your activated purpose becomes undeniably essential and self-evident. When your unique, God-given gifts finally begin to operate in the world, everything in the atmosphere shifts dramatically. The very attributes that people once mocked, dismissed, or labeled as weaknesses, the unique, deep way you observe the world, the way you feel emotions with profound depth, the way you intuitively sense danger, the way you remain unnervingly calm in the eye of life's wildest storms, suddenly transform into the essential traits others depend upon for their own survival and guidance. What used to look like weirdness or eccentricity to them now becomes undeniable insight and spiritual wisdom. What once looked like needless overthinking transforms into sharp, life-saving discernment. What they previously dismissed as quietness or shyness now becomes powerful, undeniable authority. What they judged as being distant or aloof transforms into the inner strength, required to lead and guide without needing constant validation or applause. And the core differences they once judged so harshly begin to brilliantly shine with a clarity they can no longer possibly ignore or deny. Your deep uniqueness becomes your undeniable professional advantage. Your spiritual sensitivity becomes your personal, internal radar. Your season of isolation becomes your necessary, transformative training ground. Your powerful intuition becomes your surest protection, your hardest, won scars become your greatest, most profound wisdom. People now return to you, not because they have fundamentally changed their character, but because they have finally seen the truth they were so spiritually blind to before this revelation. They now begin to earnestly ask you for your guidance, your deep understanding, your clarity, and your direction. The very things they once casually dismissed or laughed at. They now willingly lean into the silence they once so thoroughly misunderstood. They now consciously listen to the potent voice they once willfully ignored. They now fully respect and honor the powerful identity they once entirely misread and judged. This shift occurs because when true purpose activates, perspective shifts instantly, not gradually or over time. It is like watching a thick, obscuring veil suddenly lift completely from their eyes. The very same people who once openly questioned your chosen path now realize, with a jarring suddenness, that you were walking many necessary steps ahead of them the entire time. The same people who consistently underestimated your potential now clearly recognize the immense, unshakable strength you meticulously built in private, unseen battles they were never even aware of. And the same people who tried desperately to fit you into their small, suffocating expectations now finally grasp that you were always deliberately designed for something exponentially greater and more significant than their wildest imaginations could ever have conceived. But here is the final, ultimate revelation they will struggle to admit. Your season of profound misunderstanding was never, ever their mistake to make. It was, purely and simply, your necessary, intense preparation. Every single misjudgment was a setup positioning you perfectly for the next stage. Every rejection was a divine repositioning, aligning you toward your true north. Every painful delay was spiritual protection, shielding you from premature exposure. Every long season of quiet silence was actively sculpting and hardening you into the powerful person they would eventually have absolutely no choice but to deeply and permanently respect. Your undeniable purpose did not just merely change their temporary view of you. It exposed the powerful, sacred truth that was always present and true beneath the surface. And now, as the final, necessary piece of this complex transformation unfolds, there is one last, profound truth you must fully internalize and understand, one that conclusively reveals why your entire difficult journey had to unfold exactly the way it did, with no easy shortcuts. And now, from your vantage point, you can finally see it all with perfect clarity. Everything you intensely lived through, every doubt you questioned, everything that felt inexplicably heavy, confusing, or brutally unfair, it was never random chaos. It was never a punishment against your soul. It was a purposeful, carefully carved path designed specifically for those who carry a calling that is undeniably bigger and more profound than the immediate world around them can possibly understand or process in the moment. You were always destined to walk through the crucible of misunderstanding before you ever stepped into the promised land of respect. You were meant to be temporarily unseen before you were globally recognized. You were meant to be fiercely questioned before you were truly honored. This deliberate, often painful journey was the necessary process that shaped you into a leader, someone who refuses to crumble under pressure, who doesn't require superficial validation to move decisively forward, and who will never lose their essential self when the world temporarily fails to see their worth or potential. You did not rise to this occasion because people eventually believed in you. You rose because heaven itself meticulously designed you to reach this height. And now, the heavy fog of confusion and doubt is finally and permanently lifting. Your true identity is no longer a painful mystery even to yourself. Your profound purpose is no longer hidden beneath the crushing weight of other people's negative, small perceptions. You are courageously stepping into a new season where what was once fiercely misinterpreted becomes powerfully and visibly undeniable. This is the season where the immense strength you painstakingly built in that season of silence becomes the very strong foundation that others will desperately lean on for support and guidance. This is where the faltering purpose that was quietly forming inside you becomes profoundly visible enough to instantaneously shift entire atmospheres. Hear this final message like a prophecy of your future. The very same people who misread, misjudged, or dismissed your purpose will one day humbly rely on your hard-won wisdom. They will finally see the powerful truth they couldn't name or process before. They will be forced to respect the undeniable calling they once aggressively resisted. They will genuinely honor what they were once too fearful or unwilling to understand, because you were never, ever meant to simply fit within their comfortable, small expectations. You were always designed by the divine to powerfully and undeniably exceed them all. This is the sacred, inevitable path of the chosen, misunderstood first, respected later, and elevated always. If this message resonated deep within your spirit and awakened something powerful inside you, declare your truth boldly and unequivocally in the comments section below. Write, "I am chosen and my time is coming." And let that powerful public declaration be the profound, pivotal moment everything in your life begins to irrevocably align with the magnificent, powerful person you were always meant to become.